Guten Morgen, it's Morgan. So I have always been super interested in true crime, and usually when I'm getting ready for the day, I will listen to either a true crime podcast or watch a true crime YouTube channel while I do my makeup and get ready for the day, while I do my skincare, get dressed, do my hair, all of that stuff. But recently I've been listening to some that I had additional questions on, and I did some research and I found out more than the person telling it told. So I wanted to start my own so that I could tell it how I want it told, to find out all the information that is interesting to me, and then also still get ready for the day. So that's why it's Murder in the Mornings, because as I'm getting ready in the morning, I'm going to talk about a true crime story while I do my makeup. I tend to do like all the underneath stuff first and then put foundation over all of it. So that is why I'm going to look a little weird starting out, but that's how I do my makeup. So anyways, this story starts with a hunter. He goes behind a shopping mall and he's just, like an average hunter, looking for animals, scouting for good grounds, trails, whatever, tracking animals and trying to just find a good spot, So he stumbles upon a skull, and this is not the kind of skull that a hunter wants to find. It is a human skull. So he calls the authorities and is like, yeah, I just found a human skull. And so the cops come and they find 3 more bodies. So this is a mass grave at this point, and they know that they're dealing with a serial killer. So, they're obviously very panicked and are wanting to find the serial killer as soon as possible. Luckily for them, the serial killer is already in jail. So this is a story of William Devin Howell. Okay, so William Devin Howell, he goes by Devin. He actually goes by Devin so much that he got it tattooed to his bicep. The name Devin tattooed to his bicep. Yeah. He obviously wants everyone to know that his name, he goes by Devin. So anyways, he was born February 11th, 1970, to 2 parents, a mom and a dad, and he was born in a small town in Hampton, Virginia. His mom and dad, they got married before they were 20, and they had 2 kids before the age of 20. Yeah, so those are Devin's 2 older brothers, but when she was 35, she got pregnant again, unplanned. That was Devin's other brother, Kevin. So Kevin was the closest in age to him. When Devin was born, his mother was 40 years old. So he was about 20 years apart from his older brothers. His 2 oldest brothers, he was 20 years younger than them. And his second oldest brother was serving in Vietnam at the time of his birth. So he didn't really know his 2 older brothers as brothers. They were more like uncles to him. But he did have his closest brother in age, Kevin, was still living at home while he was born because they were about 5 years apart. So Devin was described as outgoing, funny, pretty good kid overall. Devin says that he had a very comfortable and supportive family. They weren't rich by any means, but he wanted to make sure that everyone knew he wasn't on financial aid. He never used food stamps, anything like that. So they weren't rich, but they definitely weren't poor. When he was 11, his mother was diagnosed with breast cancer. So this obviously took a toll on him. She had both of her breasts removed and had radiation and chemotherapy. From all of the stress this was putting on her body, she had stroke after stroke after stroke until she was paralyzed on her entire left side. So his brothers were out of the house by this time, and they said that Devin got away with a lot. One, because he is the youngest kid, and two, because his parents did have him later in life, and three, because his mom wasn't really in any shape to take care of him. It was the other way around, actually. He had to take care of his mom. So he had a paper route in the mornings. He would go and deliver the newspaper, and then he would go to school and then come home and take care of his mom. He said that multiple times when he was taking care of his mom, she would ask him to bring her his father's gun and then to go out and play. He said he never did because he knew what would happen if he did. But basically, she was just so miserable and she couldn't take care of herself anymore and had to rely on her child to take care of her. So he would take care of her until his dad came home from work, and then he would go to bed, or at least pretend to go to bed. He said he would wait until he was sure his father thought he was asleep, and then he would go sneak out and party, smoke weed, drink alcohol, and hang out with his girlfriend. So while he was still in high school, he got his girlfriend pregnant. She had a baby, and then shortly after, he got her pregnant again, and she had another baby. So he has 2 kids while still in high school. When he wasn't out hanging out with his girlfriend, he would solicit sex workers. He says that over the next few years, he would solicit hundreds of sex workers. So this is all while his mom is dying. So at age 15, she does die, and he, just continues down this path of drugs and alcohol. And when he is 20 years old, his father dies as well. At this point, he starts dealing with heavier drugs. He starts doing crack cocaine. And his girlfriend, his high school girlfriend, is not chill with this. She was fine with the weed and the drinking, and I don't know if she knew about the sex workers, but I doubt she'd be chill with that. But she says, I don't want my children to be around this, so she packs up and with the kids and moves. So in about 5 years, he lost his mom, his dad, his girlfriend, and his 2 children. So that can be hard on anyone. Oh, and he starts doing cocaine, right, while drinking. So he became known as a drifter. He would go from state to state and burglarize, do drug deals, solicit sex workers, everything under the sun. And he got in trouble in Florida, Virginia, Connecticut. He broke his probation. Just everything you can imagine, basically, is what happened. So that takes us back to the hunter finding 3 dead bodies. Devin was known as the Sick Ripper. That is what he called himself. When he was 31, he bought a Ford van, a dark blue van from his ex-girlfriend's mom. His now ex-girlfriend's mom, but it was his girlfriend at the time. So he was a landscaper. He lived in his van, which he called his murder mobile. Yeah. And he would just, live in the van. Anyways, he goes in and out of jail for his many crimes, and that's when he starts getting rape fantasies. Caution. Disclaimer. This video will talk about sexual violence, murder, and rape. So just be warned. If that's a trigger, stop watching. Anyways, so he decides that he's gonna solicit a sex worker, someone who also is a drug addict, so that hopefully no one will miss them, and he's gonna do whatever he wants to them. His first known victim, was Melanie Ruth Camellini, I think is her last name. She was 29 years old. She was a mother of 2. She was a drug addict. And this is probably the worst of the deaths. He hit her with a hammer, and he said that she just wouldn't die. But after he hit her, he said that she said, "Please don't kill me. Don't hit me with the hammer again." He says he felt too bad to hit her with the hammer again, so he just strangled her to death. Yeah, what a nice guy. Anyways, so he said that the ground was too cold to bury her, so he wrapped her in a blanket and kept her in the backseat of his car, of his van, for 2 weeks, and slept beside her, drove with her in the back, all of this stuff, until eventually he threw her out behind this shopping mall in the woods. So he would just pull to the back of the parking lot, swing open his van door, and toss her out. So yeah, that happened. That was January 1st, 2003 was when she was reported missing. And then the next ones follow pretty quickly between them. So we don't actually know 100% which order everything came in, because he says that the next victim, Nilsa, was in February, but her family says it was in January. So either way, not even a month from when the first victim was killed. So the next victim was Nilsa. She was a mother of 4. She was 33 years old, and her boyfriend, Ace Sanchez, is the one who saw her get into this van with Devin. But they were kind of friends with Devin. Not like, they didn't know him super well, but she had gotten drugs from Devin a number of times, and that night they actually all shared a hotel together, like the boyfriend, Nilsa, and Devin, and some other guy. They had all shared a hotel together, so the boyfriend, Ace, didn't really think much of it. He was just like, oh yeah, she's going to hang out with this guy who gives us drugs, and we literally just spent the night with him, so like, he wasn't too suspicious until she didn't come home, obviously. Since she is a mother of 4, her sister and her children were like, there's no way she would have just left us. Yes, she does drugs, but she would never have just left. So her sister is the one who actually reported them missing, and the cops originally looked into the boyfriend, and the boyfriend writes a letter saying, hey, this is the last person I saw her with. Can you please look into him? So the cops did. They look into him, and they find his van. The seats had all been removed, but underneath the carpet of the van, they find 2 unidentified, puddles of blood, but dried, so dried blood. They use Nilsa's sister to figure out the DNA, and it is a match. So they're 90% positive Nilsa's blood is there. So Devin, what he has to say is that Nilsa and her boyfriend were having an altercation, and so that's why there was blood, and then he was actually the hero and kicked out. The boyfriend was like, hey, no fighting with this girl. You need to go. That's not cool. So that's what Devin says happened. The cops don't buy that, obviously. And he takes an Alfred plea, which, if you don't know what that is, basically it's saying that the prosecution has enough evidence to convict you of the crime of murder, but you're still remaining that you didn't do it. Like, you're still saying I'm not guilty, but they have enough evidence to prove that I'm guilty. So yeah, that's what it is. And it's manslaughter, I think, always, but not 100% positive. It's always manslaughter, but that's what he gets convicted of and goes to jail for, manslaughter, for 15 years for Nilsa's murder. Well, you know. So then, that's the only one they know about, obviously, at that point. Otherwise, this would have been very different. So, he then murders Diane Kuzak. She was 55. It was sometime after July 9th of 2003, because the cops actually came to her house because she was having a disagreement with the landlord, and so they came to like step in and make sure everything was going good. But they're not sure when she actually went missing because she was never reported missing. Since she had been a drug addict, she lost ties with her family and her friends, and so to this day, no one has reported her missing. So that's kind of sad. So we don't know exactly when she went missing, but they found her body with all the others. So that happened. Then there was 23-year-old Javelin Martinez. She goes by Joy. She went missing, well, the last time anyone saw her was October 10th, 2003. She wasn't reported missing until March 2004 because apparently she didn't show up for her birthday party, and that's when the family got suspicious, even though she lives with her mother. So her mother waited like 5 months to report her missing, even though she lives with her. So she was a high school track star, and she was unemployed at that time, but that's all that was really said about her. There is another woman. She was 40 years old, Mary Jane. She was a mother as well, and she was last seen going into a blue or black van with a guy named Phil. She was a substance abuse counselor. So a little different and interesting compared to the other victims. But she had dealt with substance abuse in the past. So it's just interesting that they all have this correlation, even though she's slightly different. And they're all like pretty different range of ages. Like one was 55, one was 23, just like huge range. So, yeah, obviously his name isn't Phil. His name is William Devin Howell, whichever one you like to call it. And then we have Danny Lee, who is a transgender, so the name now is Janice Roberts. But legally, they didn't change their name, so most reportings still say the name Danny Lee. So they were reported missing June 18th. Well, they were last seen June 18th, 2003. They were last seen at a Stop and Shop getting into this van. So it's just interesting that so many people saw, like half at least, were all reported seen getting into this van, yet nothing was done about it. Like nothing was looked into about the van. But also, most of these people weren't reported missing until after he was caught. So it wouldn't really have done any good, like, to know that after he was already caught, but thanks for trying. So then the last person, again, this isn't in the correct order, so just basically from between January, the beginning of 2003 to October 2003, there were 7 bodies. Marilyn Gonzalez, she was a mother of 2, but she was found behind a different shopping mall. So how they found 3 from that hunter, and then while he was in jail, he tells his cellmate, while he's in jail for manslaughter of Nilsa, he tells his cellmate that he called his van the Murder Mobile and called himself the Sick Ripper of Connecticut, and that he would rape women repeatedly over hours or days even, and then strangle them, and then wrap them up in plastic bags, garbage bags, and roll them out behind shopping malls. So that is how they find the other 4 bodies, because of the cellmate telling the cops about those ones. He even said that Melanie, that he would call her baby. This is the one that was wrapped in the blanket for 2 weeks in his van. He said that he would call her baby. Devin says that this isn't true, that he called her body. Either way, it's pretty messed up. So it doesn't really matter which one he called her, because it's still disgusting. I'm gonna do my eyeliner off camera because I don't want to be like super duper close to the camera. Okay, well, I've never done my makeup while recording, and it looks pretty trash, so that's fun. So there are a bunch of just different, between the cellmate and Devin himself, they say different things of what happened. Obviously, neither are super reliable, other than the cellmate did lead them to the other 4 bodies, so that is good. He also says that for Melanie, remember, this was the first reported one, so it is gonna be slightly different, since he did say that he tried to kill her with a hammer and then that didn't work out, so he just moved on with strangulation. He also says that he cut off her fingertips, and he says that he only ripped out her bottom teeth, but the cellmate says that he said that he told him that he actually dismantled the whole jaw of Melanie, and disposed of it in Virginia, whereas Devin says that it was just the fingertips and the teeth, not the whole jaw, because that was too much work. Getting lazy now. And disposed of it behind a Family Dollar Tree store, in the garbage, in a dumpster in there. So either way, like, he still admits to cutting off the fingertips and taking out her teeth, so that she wouldn't be identified. But then he decided that, 1, it was too much work, and 2, that I don't know why he thought they would still be able to identify him, because like usually it's like fingerprints, DNA, or teeth, but he was like, I'm sure they'll still be able to identify him if they really try. He just hoped that they were a skeleton by then, which they were, unfortunately. So then he doesn't do that for the rest of them. Said that he would duct tape their mouths, rape them repeatedly, right, strangle them, but he said that for the last few, he would do this in a McDonald's parking lot, and so he would take them to McDonald's through the drive-thru for their last meal, and he would know it's their last meal, but they wouldn't know it's their last meal, and he would tie them up half naked, have them sit in like the passenger seat, and just be like, if you say anything, then I'll kill you. I'm like, what do these McDonald's workers like not notice? Like, someone literally tied up half naked. Anyways, so then he would feed the McDonald's and then strangle them. So after all of this, he pleads guilty and gets 6 consecutive life sentences. And he tells the judge, I should get the death penalty because he cries at, he cries when he's saying his apology to the families, and he's says this whole big apology and says his acts were monstrous, selfish, and cowardly. And he says, I deserve the death penalty, but the death penalty had actually been abolished in Connecticut. So instead he just got 360 years in prison, but he got like 450 taken off days, not years. He got 450 days taken off his sentence for good behavior. But like, obviously that doesn't do anything because it's still 360 years. He says that he just didn't want to get caught raping women. So I kind of believe that, because he did get arrested for sexual violence multiple times. So I think he figured, like, oh, if they can't go back to the police, then I can't go to jail again. So he says the whole reason why he killed them wasn't because he liked killing, was because he just didn't want to get caught for raping them, and he wanted to be able to live out his fantasies the way that he wanted. So he said it was more of like a chore strangling them, and it was just like, why won't you die already? That was his mindset. And that he didn't get like a high off of it. He didn't enjoy it. That's what he says. You know, we don't really know why he did what he did, if that's true or if he just liked it. So actually, another thing with the transgender person, he originally solicited them for oral sex. I didn't know how to say that in like a normal way. Anyways, for $20 to get that. But when it was happening, the wig fell off, and he was like, "You're a dude," and then rage killed them. So that was the only one that he says, like, yeah, I wanted to kill them. The rest were just like to cover up his tracks. So he tells his cellmate that there was a monster living inside him, that, you know, he could be this one guy where he had 2 kids, a girlfriend, a steady job, and, you know, life was great. And then the other side of him was wanting to rape and kill these women. So it's, you know, it's a mixed bag. He says that when he was in a steady relationship and living with them, he was able to control his fantasies. But it's just crazy that in 10 months, he killed 7 people. And it's just kind of like insane to think that it just started then. And like in 10 months, that's super fast. That is like insanely fast. So when they actually found the blood from Nilsa, they found 6 other videotapes of other women getting, they said, bizarre sexual relations, but none of them showed their face, except there are like 2 grainy photos of 2 women that still have not been identified. So it's just interesting to like, are there more victims out there? Another thing, when he was in Florida and got arrested, he was living 15 miles away from another woman that was found stabbed and wrapped in plastic and thrown out behind a parking lot. So the same kind of thing. The only thing is that it was stabbed, but this was before the other victims were. So this was like a year before he started killing in Connecticut, was when this other woman was found. So, I mean, he was still experimenting with how he was going to do it. That's why Melanie was with a hammer, and, you know, he didn't ever use a hammer again. So it could have been the same way, where he used a knife with this one girl and then decided to use a hammer the next time. So, I don't know. I think there are more victims, because I don't think you just go from, you know, 0 to 100, like literally 7 and 10 months, and then one either stop or that was the first time that you did it. So I definitely think that there are more victims that we just haven't found, because originally only one was reported, and that was Nilsa for manslaughter. And then they found 3 bodies. The hunter did, one of which was Nilsa. And then he told his cellmate, and 4 more were found. So I just think that there's definitely a possibility that there are way more out there, and that he just hasn't told anyone because he learned his lesson about talking about it, obviously. But he says that he just chose not to care. He knew it was wrong. Well, he says that he knew it was wrong, and he just chose to not care, but now he does care, he says. He also said that he doesn't think he would have stopped if he hadn't been caught. Obviously, it's like a good thing he got caught, but it's just, yeah, crazy that he says like he doesn't think he could have stopped, but why would he have just randomly started at 31? Other than the fact that when he was in prison for one of his many crimes, he found a bump on his head and he went to the prison doctor, and well, first he tried to cut it open and like pop it, like it was like a big old goose egg though, and so he like tried to like cut it open and take care of it himself, but he couldn't, so he goes to the doctor and the doctor cuts it open and is like, "Ooh, yeah, no, let's close that back up." So he does. So the doctor closes it back up and he says that it is, well, he takes him to a specialist, and then the specialist looks at it and says, "That's a blood clot." So he has a massive blood clot on his head, and they said it was from an aneurysm. So he's like 30 years old, right? And he has this aneurysm and it causes this big blood clot, and they said that that could cause brain damage. So maybe, and like a lot of killers have had like serious brain trauma, so maybe that's what made him all of a sudden become a killer, like finally acting on his fantasies because of his brain trauma. I don't know, could be, might not be. All I know is he is a disgusting human being because, well, so many reasons, but I just can't even imagine all of those people in like such an age range, and it's just so scary. It's just like all of his friends, all of his friends were like, "What? No, not Devin. Devin's the best. Devin would give you the shirt off his back. He was such a great guy." That's what all his friends are saying. They're like, "There's no way. He was nice. He was funny, outgoing." And his girlfriends were like, "No, he was a great boyfriend, like other than the drugs and the alcohol, but like he was a great boyfriend." So everyone was pretty shocked by this. Makes you wonder why the change. What happened? And like obviously none of this was necessary. And I'm like, sorry, if this guy has a history of breaking parole, his probation, and sexual violence, and drugs, and all of this stuff, like, why aren't you keeping a closer eye on him? And all of these people saw that they got into a blue or black van. It's like, hello? I don't know. It's just sad that these people didn't have the friends or family to, you know, even some of them weren't even reported missing ever. So it's just all around sad, unfortunate, disgusting human being. But that is the story of the sick Ripper of Connecticut, William Devin Howell. He was actually going to get out in 2019 until the other bodies were found. So thank goodness for that hunter who found the bodies, and thank goodness that he told his cellmate about his crimes, so then the other 4 bodies could be found, but most of them weren't even identified, like who they were, until 2015. So they were found in like 2007, and they weren't all identified until 2015. So yeah, he will be in jail for the rest of his life, and yeah. Thanks for watching, and I will probably do another video in a week. Let me know who you want me to talk about next time. Stay safe out there. Don't get into any vans. Bye.